Hello, dear listeners, and welcome again to another episode of Field Notes, the weekly podcast from the Hindu Business Line on all things agribusiness. I'm your host, TR Vivek. Today, we will be talking about food processing, in particular, the processing of perishable fruits and vegetables. India's horticulture production in 2021 is estimated to touch a record 327 million tons. It is the world's second largest producer of fruits and vegetables. Yet, we are able to process less than 2% of what we produce. The inability to process vegetables and increase their shelf life creates price fluctuations for you, the consumer, and terrible losses for the farmer. Remember all the frequent stories of farmers throwing away their onions and tomatoes when wholesale prices crash, or the times when the price of onions match petrol? Can processing help us avoid such disasters? To discuss this, we have with us Vaibhav Tidke. Vaibhav comes from a small hamlet in Maharashtra's Beed district. He has a PhD in solar technology from Mumbai University's Institute of Chemical Technology, and he runs a very interesting startup called S4S Technologies. S4S is a food preservation firm. While at university, Vaibhav and his colleagues came up with processing and hydrating machines using solar power, and they also hold patents for it. Esperance sells these machines to farmers and buys the dehydrated fruits and vegetables that have immense demand in the food industry. Hello and welcome, Vaibhav, to Field Notes.
Thanks, Vivek. I'm great. How are you?
Uh, I'm very fine, thank you. Vaibhav, tell us historically what has prevented India from processing a lot of its great produce? Why are we so pathetic at processing and increasing the shelf life of our fruits and vegetables?
Interesting question, Vivek. And if we go back to the food preservation techniques, food preservation as a technology is a well known in Indian context. You start from pickles to papad and other products that we do and use at home. Somehow, in the whole processing, when we moved from a traditional cooking to a mainstream or a modern cooking, some of these traditions have been lost. So it doesn't mean that we don't have a background of that. In the modern era, we look at food processing as a separate industry, which is more of an industrial setup. And one of the challenge when we looked at during our college days, mapping the technologies available across the world, one of the challenge we see main challenge was that food processing as a technology has been developed, as a science has been developed in the Western countries. And when we want to take that model back to a developing world like India, we see a couple of challenges. Number one, these technologies are not suitable or appropriate to the Indian settings. And number two is that the people, the stakeholders are not fully engaged into the whole process. What it means is that India's food processing today is limited to 2%, whereas worldwide we're seeing countries who do processing between say 50 to 80%. And that creates a large value in the ecosystem of the entire agri and food. So that value is being lost.
You say that it was not suitable for India. When you say not suitable, is it because of the kind of food that we eat, our culinary habits and practices? Is that what you meant?
Not really. So see, if we look at a food processing industry per se, it has three routes to reach out to consumers in the final product form. One is the food service industry, where processed food is used as an ingredient to make final dishes for the customers. The second set of industry is basically food manufacturing units, which use various food ingredients as a standardized product to manufacture various food products.
Could you
Food
give an
products.
example for each of the categories that you talk about?
Absolutely. So let's run through a food processing example one by one. So let's say you are using a tomato puree for making a pizza, and that is being served by a leading pizza manufacturing and delivering company in India. Let's take one example, right? So for tomato puree becomes a processed food ingredient which is used for making pizza, which is being served to the consumer. You take another example. You take an example of say noodles, right? And in noodles, you take wheat or oats, and those raw ingredients are converted to flour and finally converted to noodles, and those come to an end user in the form of a packaged good. So these are the two major industrial applications of food processing. The third is the retail thing, And just to give other example, you have ginger garlic paste that comes to your home in a packaged form that you can use as ingredient. So we see food, processed food, going into various segments, starting from food service industry as ingredient, or maybe into the FMCG food product as a ready to eat, ready to cook product, or maybe at your home in the ginger garlic paste form or tomato ketchup form. So these are the forms that this industry is in present in India. If you look at how this industry changing over a period of time, food service has cashed up. It's almost like 5 lakh crore market in India, almost like $80 billion market. If you move to segment of FMCG and processed food, that's also a large industry existing in India. And lastly, at a domestic level, also we are seeing increased consumption of processed food, starting from curd to cheese to tomato ketchup. Just giving some examples. So in the entire agriculture ecosystem, if you look at agriculture, roughly $400 billion is a base which India produces in terms of raw agri produce, and there is a value addition of almost $250 billion that occurs on top of this by food processing and a distribution. So that makes this ecosystem roughly between 600 to $700 billion market size in India, and in the next 5 years we expect it to touch to almost $1 trillion put together. So it's a large industry. If you look at why this has not been so successful in India, number one, the consumer trends are changing, and that was not the case earlier. With the recent progress in tech-enabled business model, we are seeing food service growing, FMCG growing, and also habits of cooking at home are changing. So these are some of the drivers for this industry, and we have really seen double-digit growth in all of these segments in India now. So that is driving the food processing. The last part which must be highlighted is the export market. Though Indian cooking habit is not very much inclined towards using a processed food, and we rely a lot on fresh food, there is a large processed food ingredient export market, and India's share in that market is also negligible. It's a single digit lower side number. So that's a challenge and opportunities we see in the whole food processing domain in India and globally.
We'll come to the innovations of S4S in terms of keeping the freshness intact, or making foods refresh themselves after dehydration, where the quality is not lost. But before that, just to finish my first question on the on the inhibitors for large scale processing, is it a very expensive business, food processing and packaging? Are capital costs a reason why we have been laggards in this area?
Again, answering these questions, I think we have to go on the interface of agriculture and food processing, because without this story cannot be completed. So if you look at agriculture, it's a fragmented market. So let's run through one food processing industry. So a farmer produces a tomato. Local level, there is a guy, local aggregator, who aggregates maybe from multiple farmers, and then he does a small load of say 100 crates, 200 crates, takes to a nearby mandi. That guy sells this to a mandi. Part of the payment goes to farmer, part to the logistic, part to the losses and aggregators commission also. Then from that local mandi trader, it goes to a large mandi trader who aggregates on behalf of these traders, sent to a larger mandi, where again the grading sorting occurs, and a part of a produce which we call as a processing grade material, which doesn't go to end consumers as a tabletop material, goes to a food manufacturing factory. So already we see between 3 to 4 players till the material reaches to a food factory. Once it reaches to a food factory and that guy converts it to say tomato puree, again that guy has to sell this product to the food manufacturing unit or retail, and there are 2 to 3 middlemen, a distributor, retailer and commission agent across the system. So if you look at tomato that is produced by farmer and a tomato puree that is reaching out to a consumer, let it be a retail consumer or let it be institutional buyer, we see between 5 to 8 middlemen in the system minimum. So that's like a large chain, which makes the food processing business margins a thin margin in the whole process, because everyone is earning. Second challenge is with respect to logistic and middleman cost, because there are multiple logistic points, multiple touch points and multiple middlemen. It loses margins across value chains. Logistic costs are prohibitively high. We are seeing between 5 to 15% logistic cost. Post-harvest loss because of the middleman varies from 5% to 40% product by product. So these are the three larger supply chain issues: multiple middlemen, loss of a margin, and loss of value due to logistic and food losses is a critical thing, where the entire value of a food processing is being lost on one side. On the other hand side, Most of the food processing units those India has, and in fact, true worldwide, is those are developed as a large food processing unit and suitable for managing a particular processing line or particular products. And agriculture is inherently seasonal.
Can you
Plants
give an
can.
example? You say that it is built for a particular line.
So let's run through an example of say tomato puree.
Hmm.
So a processed tomato this year, a season has started somewhere between January, February, and it has finished somewhere in May. So the tomato puree line that generally uses this does tomato as a major product, and they can use this plant on an average for 130 days a year on an industrial level. I'm not specifically talking about tomato example. Say 130 days is a typical usage of a plant. What it means is that traditionally, if you look at any manufacturing industry, we consider standard 330 days as the operating days, and all your overheads, EMIs are distributed over 330 days. Now we are talking suddenly around 130 days, and that puts the whole equation that all the operating cost, overheads, EMIs, capital cost are 2.5x more for a seasonal based food industry, and that creates a challenge. So on one side we have a supply chain issue, on other hand side we have a less utilization of capacity, and that creates this entire business not so attractive in terms of both margins and payback on the capital, and that limits the whole expansion of this business as a strong profitable business.
Vaibhav, tell us about your product. You said that it has patents as well. Tell us, what does it do, and what are the applications, and how does it?
Some of the challenges that I highlighted, which are on the agri-food side, are the challenges that we at S4S Technologies try to solve.
Mhm.
And at S4S, what we have done is not only a technological innovation, but a business model innovation to solve supply chain and technical issues. So at S4S, we are basically a food processing company. We work as an ecosystem and hardware player in the system. Our supply chain works like this. We have a farmer who produces fruits, vegetables, and other agri produce at villages. Then we have a second layer, which is the procurement and processing. In the villages, we have created procurement centers and processing units which procure material from farmers, make a payment to farmer, and do the processing at village gate. Once the processing is done, S4S picks this material, brings to a central factory to do a quality check, and then sells to over 800 institutional clients. So that's how our supply chain work. Farmer, processing unit at a village level, and then final quality check dispatched to a customer. So the entire middle layer between farmer and end consumer is taken care by S4S. This entire supply chain basically solves two issues. Number one, as I said, there is no logistic, there is no middleman, and there are no post harvest losses. That's one issue that we solve. Second, the technological patented platform that we have created is a food processing platform where one of the key equipment that S4S has patented is a solar powered dehydrator. So this is a multi-product managing hardware. We can do fruits and vegetable processing. We can do spice processing, meat processing, milk processing, grains and staples processing. So some of the products that we have through this platform are say dehydrated onion powder, or we do turmeric powder, or maybe tomato flakes, or maybe cornstarch, or maybe alternate protein extraction. So range of products can be made from the same platform. This increases the hardware usage from 130 days to potentially 250 to 330 days, which is a gold industry standard. So that's the journey that we're into. And in the whole process, then we focus on three people. Number one, farmer who gets basically market at a village level. He doesn't have to travel anywhere. There is no logistic cost because it's the same village. And thirdly, there are no post harvest losses because he can supply immediately. If you look at people, food processing, who buy from farmer, number one, and then do processing. These are typically women in their 30s plus, and they do this as a additional work apart from their home and farming activities. And this creates additional revenue of around 60,000 to 1 lakh rupee per year to them at home.
Mhm.
And lastly, our customers who get reliable supply, quality supply, and chemical preservative free food ingredients for their food industry. So that's how we're trying to simplify this entire supply chain. And we're working currently in Maharashtra, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, and UP.
So, how do these women entrepreneurs go about it? How expensive or how big is your hardware? How do they get access to it, and how do you enroll them into your chain?
Yeah. So again, running through the supply chain. First part is the farmer who supplies material to our women entrepreneurs. This process occurs at a village level, and farmer gets his money within 24 hours for the material that he supplied. Yeah. So second part is a woman entrepreneur, where we basically train them for procurement and processing. One woman is expert in the procurement domain. She understands quality and pricing of a procurement. Second set of women are expert in the processing. They buy the hardware from the bank. This hardware typically cost around 60,000 to 80,000 rupee as a bank loan on the woman entrepreneur name, and then they do a regular processing. As far as comes as a buying partner here, and whatever the material that is procured and processed, as far as buys on a weekly basis. So that's how this entire supply chain works.
How large is the equipment? Do you need a factory sized, a cottage industry size operation? What are the space and resource requirements to run these dehydration plants?
So these food dehydration or food manufacturing units that we have, these units typically have 100 feet square area requirement per woman. So this can be done at a household level. It doesn't need an industrial setup. What you need is basically cleanliness standards and space that is well covered, protected from the insect and other things. This can be done at a household level. In terms of the operations, this is typically easy operation. Women entrepreneurs generally know how to manage food products, how to clean, wash, and process. Typical our training days start between 3 to 7 days, product by product. So once we onboard a woman, within 3 to 7 days, our entire village starts off.
And what are the kinds of fruits and vegetables that can be processed through your hardware?
Currently, we are doing some of the F&B and staples. In fruits and vegetables, we are doing onion, tomato, potato, ginger, and garlic. This is one set of a product. In staples, what we are doing is starches extracted from maize and potato. We're also doing a run on alternative protein market in soybean and pea protein, which is a new generation of proteins. And thirdly, we are doing the breakfast cereals, which are used as an ingredient in your breakfast cereals that we have with milk or in a hot or cold form. So these are the categories that we are doing, and we have bifurcated these categories into two parts. One is the seasonal products and non-seasonal products, because staples are available widely throughout the year, versus vegetables and fruits go through seasonality. So that balancing we have done in terms of usability of a plant. The other benefit of this hardware is it is multi-product. So you can do onion also, and you can make cornflakes also out of the same machine. So that's the beauty, and that's what we are leveraging.
Okay. And you use solar power technology for this?
Yeah. So in terms of a technology, there are some of the key features that differentiate Esporis and Esporis products in the market. Number one, it is extremely energy efficient technology. It consumes 94 times lesser energy than any other food dehydrator in the market. So it costs only 6% in terms of the energy cost. It's powered by solar. Secondly, with respect to the food processing technology that we have created, we maintain one of the highest nutrients in the world, and that retention is between 85 to 99% nutrient retention in terms of protein, vitamins, fibers, and minerals. And that makes our products as good as fresh product when you want to use it. So on one side we have energy, on other side we have nutrition retention, and that too without any chemicals or preservatives being added to the product. And lastly, it's a multi-product platform, so that if one product is not available, we can switch to the other product.
Okay. When you say as good as fresh fruits and vegetables, are these dehydrated products used, say, as in the form of onion powder, dried chilies, or sun-dried tomatoes, or are they rehydratable? So that they get back their freshness and can be used as almost substitutes for fresh ingredients.
So both applications are there. On the first application, it is used as a food ingredient. So if you take a potato chips, for example, which has a cream and onion flavor, onion powder is used as a dusting or a seasoning on the product. Just one example. On the other hand side, you look at maybe a large kitchen that is serving to a flights or railways. You would have eaten Esporis product where our products are used. Instead of using fresh onion or fresh garlic or tomato, Esporis products are being used to make the vegetables that you eat. So both the applications are there. First application is very well standard in industry. Second application is Esporis has clearly demonstrated in multiple segments as of now. So both applications are possible.
Okay. Okay. And Vaibhav, tell us about, touched upon the fact that these women entrepreneurs are able to make about 60,000 rupees to a lakh in additional income per year. By creating value additions at the farm level, or in the rural areas very close to the farm gate, is a great way of creating value in those communities. How are farmers being benefited by having these processing centers very close to their farming operations?
Uh, Couple of points again. Number one, we differentiate the value beneficiary into two parts: farmer and women entrepreneurs. For farmers, we offer three things. They have a reliable market at the village level. They are not dependent. Save on a logistic cost, which is a direct saving to them. And thirdly, there are no post-harvest losses, and that helps us to sell more and
Does this
losses.
also help them tide over these wild price fluctuations? Say, dumping of tomatoes when prices crash, or onions. We hear about these stories quite often. Does it help them tide over these issues where they have an assured buyer's market?
Definitely. So, see, assured buyers market at a village level is a key parameter where we have seen farmers saying that, "Sir, price कुछ भी मिलेगा चलेगा, माल ले लो," right?
Hmm.
So that's a point we have seen, and it doesn't mean that any company can pay more prices to farmers because it's not viable sustainably. But what
Mhm.
it makes a difference, assured market, is that farmer is assured that if he does growing and harvesting, there are buyers in the market. Price fluctuations across India is a national concern, and how we can tackle, definitely food processing is one, but one SPRS is not sufficient enough to manage the large volumes of 300 million plus tons that we are talking about, right? So it will make some difference, but one player is definitely not good enough. We are seeing each district can create a revenue of 200 to 300 billion dollar through the food processing. Question is that how that can be converted into a scalable model, and we may see multiple startups coming out at regional levels in this domain.
Vaibhav, what is the capacity of vegetables that one woman entrepreneur can handle with your hardware?
Typically, at one village level of procurement and processing, roughly of 1 crore happens at a village gate. So per village, you can consider around a crore rupee procurement and processing.
Mhm. And in terms of procurement capacity, how much can they do in a month? What is the volume of vegetables and fruits they can handle?
See, typically at a village gate level, if you look at, we can consider between 500 to 1,000 tons a year.
And what is the cumulative volume that you do? How many such women entrepreneurs and units do you have in your network?
Currently, in terms of SPORES capacity, we have installed capacity of 25,000 tons a year, and we work with around 450 women entrepreneurs as of now.
Okay. Weber, how do you think something like this can be scaled up? Can this become a pan India application? Does this business model have the potential to be scaled up across the country?
In terms of scaling of the food processing, the model that S4S has created, our focus has been on creating playbooks of replication for onboarding procurement and processing women entrepreneurs on one side and onboarding customers on other side. Both of these playbooks are ready and ready to replicate. So if you look at S4S, we plan to move from 25,000 tons to scaling our capacity 4x in the period of next 18 to 24 months. So that's the capacity scale that occur. But we definitely see that there are two possibilities in this market, and S4S would like to ride on a first one, where we have a large companies like S4S who are scaling this across states and across geographies. And we may also see there are other routes that people take in food processing, like we have seen in dairy, which are slightly different routes, and we may see a regional players also. So this is a mix of ecosystem that we see, but definitely we see this is a large market, and there can be multiple unicorns that can be seen in this industrial segment soon.
Vaibhav, thank you very much for joining us and all the best for your future endeavors.